When a young boy with nothing but a guitar and a dream steps onto the stage, the world holds its breath. His mother is gravely ill. His father, a struggling single dad, can't afford treatment, but this talent show might be their only hope. As his voice fills the room, the lead judge, a powerful woman with a hidden past, is struck by something hauntingly familiar. What she doesn't know is that the boy she's judging is her own son. In a moment that will change lives forever, truth, love, and fate collide under the spotlight. Rain tapped gently against the window of a small, worn-out apartment tucked into the quieter edges of the city. Inside, the flickering light from a single lamp cast long shadows across the room. 11-year-old Ethan sat on the edge of a fraying couch, cradling a battered guitar in his lap. He strummed it gently, not for fun, not for practice, but for something far more serious. Hope. In the bedroom nearby, his mother, Lena, lay weak and pale, her illness slowly stealing her strength with every passing day. Medical bills had piled up on the kitchen counter, unopened envelopes now forming a tower of silent threats. The diagnosis had come suddenly, aggressive, costly, unforgiving, and it was far more than Ethan or his father could afford. Ethan looked up as the door creaked open. His father, Jack, stepped in, soaked from his double shift at the mechanic's shop, oil stains still smudging his clothes. His eyes met Ethan's, tired but kind. "How's she doing?" Jack asked, nodding toward the bedroom. "She smiled at me this morning," Ethan said quietly, "but it's getting harder for her to talk." Jack's jaw tightened and he rubbed the back of his neck. He walked to the sink, poured himself a glass of water, and looked out the window. The silence between them spoke louder than words. They were running out of time. "Dad," Ethan said, his voice suddenly bold, "I want to enter the Starrise talent show." Jack turned around, puzzled. "That TV thing with the celebrity judges?" Ethan nodded. "First place wins $25,000. That could help Mom, couldn't it?" Jack sighed and sat down at the table, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. "Son, those shows, they're tough. They don't just pick anyone." "I have to try." Wasn't just a child's wish, it was a plea. Jack could hear it. He saw the determination in his son's eyes, a fire fueled by desperation and love. This wasn't about fame. It wasn't even about music. It was about saving the person they both loved most in the world. Jack stood up slowly and walked over to the guitar. He hadn't touched an instrument in years, not since he gave up his own dreams of being a musician to raise Ethan alone. Life had been cruel, and time had been unkind, but maybe, just maybe, they still had one song left in them. "You're gonna need someone to play with you," Jack said, eyes softening. "Someone to help arrange the music, help you rehearse. Someone who knows what they're doing." Ethan's eyes lit up. "You mean you'll help me?" Jack took a deep breath, then gave a slow, quiet nod. "Let's win this thing, for your mom." Over the next few weeks, their apartment transformed from a place of quiet sorrow into a haven of music and resilience. Sheet music covered the kitchen table. The walls echoed with chords and melodies. They practiced after Jack's shifts, long into the night. Ethan's voice, clear and haunting, carried through the halls like a prayer. He sang songs about hope, about loss, about love. He wrote one of his own, an original piece about his mother called Hold On. It wasn't perfect, but it was raw, honest, and full of heart. Jack helped him with the arrangement, accompanying him on a second-hand keyboard he dug out from the attic. They sent in a recording of the song and waited, breath held, for a reply. The day the acceptance email came, Ethan screamed so loud it startled the neighbors. They were in. The Starrise talent show wasn't just a stage, it was a chance. A chance to fight back against everything life had thrown at them. A chance to be heard, to be seen, to make a difference. Jack and Ethan knew the odds were stacked high. They were up against polished performers, kids with vocal coaches, glam teams, and expensive training. But they had something none of the others had. A reason, a purpose, a dream born out of love and survival. And so, as the night of the performance drew near, Jack tightened every loose key on the piano. Ethan rehearsed his song again and again until he could sing it in his sleep. They packed a small overnight bag and took the long bus ride to the city where the show was filmed. For Jack, it felt like revisiting an old wound. He'd once dreamed of stages like this. Now he watched his son step onto one, stronger than he'd ever been. Backstage, Ethan held his guitar close, his hands trembling just a little. Jack knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "No matter what happens out there," he whispered, "you're already my hero." Ethan nodded, swallowing his fear. He looked out at the glowing lights of the stage, not knowing what waited for him in the judges' panel or what secret was about to unfold. But for now, all that mattered was the music and his mother. The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Camera crews moved like shadows along the edges of the stage, capturing every moment of tension and triumph. Glittering lights beamed down from above, and the sleek black floor reflected the glow like a polished mirror. In the center sat the judging panel, a row of celebrity faces carefully chosen for star power, musical expertise, and one unknowingly chosen by fate. At the end of the panel sat Vanessa Moore, a renowned music producer, Grammy-winning vocalist, and the show's most formidable judge. Known for her sharp critiques and colder-than-ice demeanor, Vanessa had built her career on precision, discipline, and emotional detachment. But beneath the designer suit and perfectly styled hair lived a story no tabloid had ever told. Years, ego, and a life long buried, Vanessa had made the most painful decision of her life: to give up her newborn son. It was supposed to be temporary. She had been only 19, alone, broke, and dreaming of becoming a singer. She had no family support, and the baby's father had vanished. When the adoption became permanent, she buried the pain beneath her rising fame. Over the years, she had wondered who he was, where he was, what kind of life he'd had, but she had never searched. It hurt too much. She told herself it was better this way. Now, without knowing it, she was moments away from meeting him. Backstage, Ethan paced nervously, guitar clutched in his hands, while Jack gave him a quiet pep talk. The producers were getting ready to introduce him on stage. Just beyond the curtain, a crowd of strangers waited, and so did Vanessa. Ethan had no idea who she was. To him, she was just the tough judge with the famous face, the one who rarely smiled. He didn't know her history, her heartbreak, or that his DNA was written somewhere in her soul. A voice came through the loudspeaker. Contestant number 18, Ethan Gray. The spotlight blinked on and Ethan stepped out. The crowd quieted as he made his way to center stage. Jack, seated at a piano to the side, gave him a small nod. Vanessa adjusted her microphone and leaned forward, casually scanning the stage as she did with every performer. Then she froze. The boy looked familiar. There was something in the curve of his chin, the depth of his eyes. It wasn't exact. He was older than the image in her memory, taller, obviously, but something deep and instinctual stirred in her chest. Her throat tightened. He introduced himself, voice soft but clear. "My name is Ethan Gray. I'm singing an original song called Hold On. I wrote it for my mom." Vanessa blinked. Gray? The name didn't register, but it wouldn't. The child's last name had changed after the adoption. Still, the unease continued to creep under her skin like fog. As the boy strummed the first chord, the hall seemed to shrink. The music was simple, Just a few chords and a soft piano harmony, but the lyrics hit like a storm. When the world gets cold and you're barely hanging on, I'll be your strength, your fire, your song. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. You held me close when I was small. Now I'll be the one who answers your call. The emotion in his voice was raw, unfiltered. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't performing. He was pleading. Singing not just to be heard, but to be understood. And Vanessa was listening. Halfway through the song, her hand moved unconsciously to her locket, a small gold piece she hadn't taken off in decades. Inside was a photo of a baby boy with a hospital tag wrapped around his wrist. Her eyes stung. The timeline made sense. His age, his features. Her breath caught. She turned to the show's executive producer beside her, whispering urgently, "Did he submit a bio?" The producer nodded and passed her a digital tablet. She scanned the short blurb. Lives with his single father, mother ill, no mention of adoption, no real details. But something inside her screamed this was no coincidence. Her fingers trembled. Could it be? She looked again at the boy's face as he hit the final note. Tears glimmering in his eyes. The crowd erupted into applause. Other judges stood, moved by the raw beauty of his performance. Vanessa remained seated, stunned, breathless. Jack stood from the piano, gently placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. They bowed together. Vanessa's heart skipped. That man, his eyes weren't Ethan's. His features didn't match. He's not the biological father, she thought. She leaned forward again, gripping the mic. Ethan, she said, voice uncharacteristically soft. That was a beautiful performance. She paused, visibly shaken. I felt something very personal in your song. Can I ask, how old are you? 11, Ethan replied. And your mom, is she here tonight? Ethan's smile faltered. She's really sick. That's why I entered. I want to help her get better. Vanessa's voice cracked. You're doing more than that. Backstage, a producer reviewed Ethan's intake form, frowning. Hey, this kid's birth certificate only lists the mother as Vanessa. No, last name. He looked up slowly toward the judging panel where Vanessa Moore sat frozen, staring at the boy on stage. Fate was no longer whispering. It was singing, loud and clear. The woman who had given up her child out of desperation was now the one judging his song of survival, and she didn't know whether to cheer or fall apart. Silence settled over the auditorium as Ethan finished his song. For a moment, the world stood still. No applause, no movement, just the raw echo of a child's voice lingering in the air. Then, the audience erupted. A standing ovation swept the room like a wave, with cheers, whistles, and even tears glinting in strangers' eyes. But at the judges' table, Vanessa Moore sat frozen, her hands trembling beneath the desk. The locket around her neck burned like a brand against her skin. Her mind raced. Every instinct she had as a mother, long buried beneath years of denial and distraction, was suddenly screaming the same truth. This is my son. She couldn't look away. His voice, his eyes, even the way he tilted his head when he smiled. It was all too familiar. And the song, that song, no child could have written something so heartfelt without living it. He sang like someone with love in his veins and desperation in his soul. As the audience finally calmed, the host returned to the stage with a broad grin. What a powerful performance. Judges, let's hear your thoughts. The first two judges praised Ethan for his sincerity and raw talent. Then, the host turned to Vanessa. She blinked, gripping the microphone with unsteady fingers. Ethan, she said softly, that song, it was beautiful. But more than that, it felt like Fate, like something brought you here, not just to sing, but to be seen. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. He nodded, shy but steady. Would you mind, Vanessa continued, if I spoke with you backstage for just a moment after the show? Ethan looked over to his father, who gave a small, supportive nod. Okay, Ethan said. Backstage, the glitter and lights faded. The glamour of the show dissolved into quiet corridors and low voices. Jack stood by Ethan, proud and calm, though visibly protective. Vanessa stepped into the hallway, alone. Her heels clicked softly on the tile as she approached them, each step heavier than the last. She stopped just a few feet away, searching Ethan's face. Jack, she said, addressing the father, do you mind if I speak with Ethan alone? Just for a moment? Jack hesitated. His eyes narrowed. He didn't know who this woman really was. Only that she was famous, and something in her tone sounded deeply personal. But after a beat, he nodded and stepped back. Vanessa crouched down so she was eye level with Ethan. Do you know anything about your birth mother? She asked gently. Ethan looked confused. No, my dad raised me alone. He said my real mom had to give me up when I was born, but he never told me much. I never really asked. Vanessa's breath hitched. I think... Her voice broke. I think that might have been me. Ethan blinked, stunned. I was very young, scared. Alone, she continued, eyes misting. I made the hardest decision of my life back then. I told myself I was giving you a better chance. But I never stopped thinking about you. I've worn this locket every day since the day I lost you. She unclasped the necklace and opened the locket. Inside was a tiny hospital photo, an infant wrapped in a blue blanket, a tag on his wrist that read, Baby Boy, Ethan. Ethan stared at it, then at her. You're my mom? A tear rolled down Vanessa's cheek. Yes, I didn't know until I saw you sing. I didn't plan this, but now I know. I feel it. Silence. Ethan stepped back, unsure what to feel. For years, he'd wondered about her in an abstract way, who she was, why she left, but now she was real. And standing in front of him, behind him, Jack stepped forward slowly. I didn't want to keep him from you. I just didn't know who you were. Vanessa nodded. I understand, and you raised him beautifully. Jack looked at Ethan. This is your choice, son. However you feel, it's okay. Ethan looked from one to the other. His dad, tired but strong, the man who never left. And Vanessa, the mother who gave him life, now returned by destiny. After a long pause, Ethan stepped forward and hugged her. Not a long hug, not a perfect one, but a beginning. Vanessa held him like she was trying to memorize him, trying to make up for all the years lost in a single breath. And Jack, watching silently, understood that life had just changed forever for all of them. Later that night, the producers gathered in a huddle. One whispered, "Do we tell the press?" Another shook his head. No need. The moment speaks for itself. Because no headline could capture what had just happened. Not poor boy sings to save mom. Not Judge reunited with son on stage. It was something deeper. A boy's voice had not only saved his mother's life, it had awakened a mother's love. And in that moment, beneath the hot lights of a talent show stage,